Hi everyone, and welcome to another marvelous video. We are all aware of the vicious villain Apocalypse, who was introduced in X Factor issue 5, published in June 1986. Named initially in Sabanur, the character was one of the oldest mutants whose consciousness has been passed on to several other mutants. He was also the main antagonist of the 2016 X-Men film titled X-Men Apocalypse, and Sabanur spent years spreading his bloodline and eventually making a clan. There were many notable figures carrying his bloodline, and in today's video, we will cover all of that. So, without any further delay, let's dive into our list of 18 members of Apocalypse's family. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Bale, adoptive father. Bale was one of the most critical characters associated with Sabanur, aka Apocalypse. Created by Terry Kavanagh and Adam Polina, Bale made his first appearance in Rise of Apocalypse, Volume 1, Issue 1. Long back, approximately 5,000 years ago, a gray-skinned and facially disfigured child was born in the tribe known as the Akaba, near the borderlands of ancient Egypt. Owing to the child's appearance, he was cast out and left to die until Bale, the leader of the Sandstormers, saved him. He named him Sabanur and believed that he was special. However, his beliefs were not blind. At some point, Kang's time ship had crash-landed on Earth, which contained Sabanur's face in the form of bizarre designs. Kang was rescued by Bale and the Sandstormers, who named him Ramatut and brought him back to health. Later, Ramatut went against him and seized the pharaoh's crown with the aid of his futuristic technology. All this made Bale believe that Sabanur was the special child who could one day overthrow Ramatut. While among the Sandstormers, Sabanur successfully killed 3 tribesmen who tried to ostracize him. Ramatut became aware of the gifted mutant child and sent his Ozymandias army to search for him. Soon, the battle between Sandstormers and Ozymandias takes place, and Bale is left severely injured. While hiding underground with Sabanur, Bale weakens owing to his injuries and dies. Genesis, wife. Genesis was the wife of Sabanur and was first shown as a drawing in Free Comic Book Day 2020 issue 1. She eventually bore Sabanur's 4 children, who were known as the First Horsemen. Both Sabanur and Genesis ruled the ancient mutant land of Okara. Her role was prominent during the time when Okara was attacked by the demons from Amenth. The brief battle soon tilted in favor of the mutants, following which the elder god of Amenth, Annihilation, proposed the peace treaty to Genesis. She was made to pass the test, but even then, when Annihilation whispered the terms of the peace to Genesis, she refused to comply, and the war continued. However, this time, Genesis's sister, Iska, who possessed unfathomable power, betrayed her people and sided with the forces of Amenth. This marked the inevitable defeat of the mutants, and eventually they had to confine themselves in a part of Okara known as Arako, while the mutants of Okaran along with Genesis were sealed off into Amenth to resist the invasion, and Sabanur led a rally of the new mutant society so that one day, when the demons would return, they could defend themselves. Genesis and the mutants residing on Amenth made it their home and constructed towers to protect themselves from the demons. They fought for over millennia. Eventually, they were defeated, and Iska took Genesis to the Hall of Annihilation to reason out. There she learned that Annihilation has been breeding the demons with mutant captives to create a powerful hybrid warrior race. Following this, Genesis and Annihilation fought a fierce battle which ended in Genesis emerging victorious. However, this worsened the situation as the demons without their master caused too much chaos for the mutants to stop. The horde of demons cracked the wall of Arako, leaving the mutants no choice but to open a gateway to Dryador, one of the provinces of the foul courts in Otherworld. Genesis realized that the demons would soon leave Amenth, and to avert the danger, she donned the golden helm of Annihilation. But she soon fell into the control of Annihilation and captured Arako. She, along with her children, arrived on Earth with the forces of Amenth and faced her husband and the Krakoan mutants. She was eventually defeated and separated from the Helm of Annihilation, following which she reunited with her husband. Iska, sister-in-law. Iska, as mentioned earlier, was the younger sister of Genesis and Sabanur's sister-in-law. She was an Omega-level mutant with the ability to win under all circumstances. She was one of the many ancient mutants who resided on the island of Okara. Her childhood days were mostly spent playing games in her homeland, as she lagged behind the other kids. However, when her mutant abilities manifested, she became an immensely powerful being. When her elder sister, Genesis, married Sabanur and gave birth to 4 children, Iska forged forged a mighty sword, recasting the Uhari blades made of red gold iron. She gifted the blades celebrating the birth of the 4 children, which eventually became a symbol of the kingdom of Okara. When the demons of Amenth began their invasion of Okara, Iska fought alongside the mutants until she realized that there was no victory for them. Compelled by the nature of her powers, which always granted her victory, she switched sides and fought alongside the demons. At some point, when Annihilation created the mutant-demon hybrid, Iska took one of them, known as Tarn the Uncaring, as her lover. When the long battle ended, Iska reunited with her sister and her family. However, the Eternals, led by Druig, declared war on the mutant kind, and her powers forced her to switch sides once again. She would have brought catastrophe to the mutants, but Nightcrawler managed to teleport her into the depths of the ocean, where Sabanur, a member of the Great Ring of Arakko, tied her to fight the creatures at her command. Later, realizing her mistake, she left Arakko and warned the rest from following her. Children, Death, Son. Introduced in Marvel Comics issue 1000, released in August 2019, Death was one of the 4 children born to Genesis and Sabanur. Death, along with the rest of the siblings, were the first iteration of the 4 Horsemen of Apocalypse. During the invasion of Okara by Amenthi forces, he fought for his people to protect his sacred land. However, as mentioned earlier, during the later half of the battle between the mutants and the demons of Amenth, when Genesis removed the host of Annihilation from the entity, the horde of demons went on a rampage, leaving her with no choice but to merge with the entity. Following this, Death and the other siblings were forced to lead the forces of their lifelong enemies. Death and the other 3 children of Genesis led the armies to conquer Dryador and later besieged the very nexus of the Otherworld, which was the Starlight Citadel. At this point, they were confronted by their father, who was brought there by Sabanur, their nephew. They ambushed him and nearly killed him until Opal Lunar Saturni, the Omniversal Magistrix and ruler of the Otherworld, intervened and stopped the conflict. She froze everyone and questioned Death about his actions. Even though Death was converted to a child by the Omniversal Magistrix, he remained stern on his point and agreed on a tournament to settle the matter. Before the tournament began, Saturni organized a banquet for the contestants to mingle, during which Death took a keen interest in Storm, to which she did not reciprocate. In the tournament, Death won several battles until he was pitted against Storm, representing the Krakoan mutants. Storm clearly had the upper hand, and even though Death removed his helm to unleash his powers, Storm emerged victorious. She ran him through the vampiric crowd of Sevalith. The vampires, unable to resist Death, began devouring him, but somehow Death had survived. Created by writer Jonathan Hickman and artist Dustin Weaver, Death had another iteration from Earth TRN 756, where he rescued Apocalypse and Moira from their exile in the Otherworld. He was one of the first Horsemen and helped them to wage war against the human race. In this reality, Death and the rest of the Horsemen died during the fall of Krakoa. Famine Son. Famine was another son of Genesis, who later served as one of the 4 Horsemen of Apocalypse. His story is similar to that of Death. During the invasion of the Amenthi demons, he too fought to save their sacred land, until Genesis donned the golden helm of Annihilation. Famine then served the Amenthi forces and led them with his brother to conquer Otherworld. When their apocalypse arrived, they ambushed him and nearly killed him before Opaluna Starni arrived and stopped the fight. She convinced Death to settle the war over a tournament. Saturni asked each side to produce 10 specific swords with 10 wielders. Famine and Death recruited the White Sword and also retrieved the Black Bone of Amduat, which was the sword prophesied for Death specifically. However, when his siblings fought in the tournament, Famine and his sister Pestilence took their place in the Parliament of Otherworld, claiming it in the name of Arakko. Even though the mutants of Krakoa won the tournament, Annihilation refused to accept defeat. The war continued and ended after Apocalypse briefly merged with Annihilation and surrendered. Famine and the rest of the siblings reunited with their parents, except for Death. Pestilence, daughter. Pestilence was the daughter of Genesis and Sabanur, and also one of the first Horsemen. She and her siblings fought against the invading forces of Amenth. Later, when her mother defeated and removed the source of Annihilation, the hordes of demons attacked the mutants, taking shelter under the towers of Arakko. With no option in hand, Pestilence and the rest of the mutants sent her nephew Sabanur to Earth to seek help from her father. Genesis eventually donned the helm of Annihilation, and Pestilence helped her lead the forces of Amenth to invade Krakoa and later Otherworld. When Apocalypse arrived, Pestilence, along with the other Horsemen, attacked him and injured him severely. As mentioned earlier, the long battle was planned to be settled over a tournament. While Death and War actually participated in the tournament. Pestilence and Famine chose to act as regents of the fiefdom of Amenth. After Krakoa won the tournament, Annihilation was in no mood to accept defeat. She was joined by the Four Horsemen in waging war against Krakoa. The battle ended with Genesis being free from the entity, Annihilation, and reuniting with her family, along with the children, except Death. Pestilence and Famine continued their role as regents to Dryador and participated in diplomatic meetings held at the Starlight Citadel. War, daughter. War was the fourth of the Horsemen. Her story is similar to that of her siblings. She fought against the Amenthi demons, but later, when her mother became Annihilation, she led the combined forces of Arakko and Amenthi to invade Otherworld and later Krakoa. During their invasion, she confronted her father, Apocalypse, along with the rest of the siblings. The battle was halted after Opal Luna Starnai convinced Death to settle the dispute over a tournament. In the tournament, Death and War were the chosen sword-bearers and active participants. Before the beginning of the tournament, Starnai arranged a banquet for the participants to mingle, during which War poisoned Wolverine's food in order to secure her victory. Unfortunately, the food was eaten by Cypher, who was saved by the Arakai sword-bearer, Whitesword. War's first fight was against her teammate, Solemn, to see who could injure the opponent's limb first. During the battle, Solemn tagged Wolverine, as he owed him a favor. War managed to get the upper hand, but when she was about to cut off Wolverine's head, she was unable to do so, owing to the adamantium in his bones. Using the opportunity, Wolverine wasted no time in slicing off her left hand with his claws and ending the fight. War had 4 more fights, and she won all of them. Later, when Krakoa was declared the winner, she accompanied her mother and her siblings in attacking Krakoa. Later, when the battle ended, she also reunited with her family. William Rolfson, son, deceased. In the 20th and 21st century, there were the first modern incarnations of Apocalypse's Horsemen, showcased in X Factor Volume 1, Issue 19. Apocalypse recruited his first modern horseman from the Morlocks. He chose the mutant Plague during the Mutant Massacre to fill the role of Pestilence. Following this, he recruited ex-soldier Abraham Kiros for the position of War. Thus, the 2 places of the Horsemen were filled, and he went on to hire Autumn Rolfson for the place of Famine, and the D-Winged Angel to become his 4th horseman, Death. While serving Apocalypse, Autumn Rolfson had an affair with him, and eventually gave birth to a boy named William Rolfson. However, Autumn feared that Apocalypse could view William as a threat and kill him, for which both mother and child went into hiding. They went to Akaba Metropolis and remained in hiding with Clan Akaba. However, her replacement for Apocalypse, Archangel, found William and secretly recruited him to purge the world and restart evolution. When William's mutant powers began manifesting, he became an extremely powerful being. Archangel first made him destroy a small town in Montana and create Tabula Rasa. Soon, William's mother became aware of the happening and lashed out at Archangel, following which she was killed by her replacement. During the Apocalypse War showcased in Age of Apocalypse Volume 2, Issue 1, published in July 2015, William Rolfson met his demise while fighting Magneto and Psylocke. Descendants, Sabanur, grandson, making his first appearance in X-Men Volume 5, Issue 2, published in November 2019. Sabanur was born to War and one of the mutants on Arakko, known as Bracken. He was the leader of a group of wizards capable of summoning various creatures of Arakko, known as the Summoners. He too fought alongside the Arakko mutants against the Daemons of Amenthi. When Genesis was taken to the Hall of Annihilation, he fought a fierce battle against Annihilation and managed to remove the host from the entity. This wreaked havoc as the Daemons, without their leader, went berserk, destroying the towers of Arakko. Believing Genesis to have died, Summoner was tasked to go to Earth and seek help from his grandfather. When he finally met Apocalypse and conveyed the message, Apocalypse made his way to the other world, where he first faced his 4 children. Summoner reunited with his mother, but since Genesis was the new host of Annihilation, Summoner joined the forces of Amenth. During the tournament organized by Opal Luna Starnai, Summoner faced Wolverine in the realm of Collapse, where he met his demise. Strife, alternate reality adoptive son. Strife was a clone of Nathan Christopher Summers and later the adoptive son of Apocalypse. From an alternate reality of Earth 4935, created by writer Louise Simonson and artist Rob Liefeld, the character made his first appearance in the New Mutants issue 87, published in January 1990. In the 37th and 39th century of this reality, there was an old mutant named Mother Ascani, aka Rachel Summers. She led the Ascani cult, which stood to oppose Apocalypse, who was then the ultimate ruler of Earth. Apocalypse was extremely powerful, and they lacked any being capable of matching him. With no other option, Mother Askani sent Sister Askani to reach out to the X-Men of their own time period. Sister Askani sacrificed her physical form to become an energy and arrive at the requisite time period. In their timeline, the Riders of the Storm, the group serving Apocalypse of their timeline, kidnapped Nathaniel Summers for Apocalypse. After the X-Factor rescued Nathaniel, it was revealed that Apocalypse had infected the infant with an uncontrollable technovirus that was spreading rapidly. It was incurable, and Sister Askani requested Cyclops to allow her to take the baby into her future, where advanced technology might be able to save the baby. Once brought to the future, the doctors and technicians realized that saving the infant might not be guaranteed. In fear of losing the baby, Mother Askani cloned the baby and accelerated his growth until the clone was of the age of Nathaniel. The viral infection of the original baby was also reduced greatly, and 2 Nathaniel Summers existed. Soon, the Canaanites attacked the Askani base, and before they could save the babies, Apocalypse entered the room. The real Nathaniel was saved, but Apocalypse mistook the clone as the real one and took him under his custody. Apocalypse named the clone Strife and raised him to become a malevolent character. Strife was watched over by Chevair, Apocalypse's aide, who had mixed feelings about the boy's growing arrogance. However, during the ritual of transferring Apocalypse's consciousness into the young boy, Chevair betrayed him, and together with the real Nathan, Jean Grey, and Cyclops, Apocalypse was defeated, and Strife was left to live his life. Margaret Slade, descendant. Clan Aqaba was an ancient mutant society consisting of mutants carrying the bloodline of Apocalypse. Margaret Slade was one such member and was born into one of the high houses of the clan. They resided in what was called Alexandria House, which was also the place for the clan's meetings. When she was a little girl, she even witnessed the war between Apocalypse and the Nagarai demons, which ended in Apocalypse decimating the entire tribe. Margaret gave birth to 2 sons, Hamilton and Frederick. Hamilton was the stronger one and eventually acted as the leader of the clan during the absence of Apocalypse. At some point, Dracula began turning their clan members into vampires. Soon, Hamilton went missing, and the council members summoned Apocalypse, who was not really happy about it, and killed one of the council members. Margaret's favor for her son Hamilton was such that when Khabar was about to explain to Apocalypse how the clan members were missing, she stopped him, stating that the clan members were safe and the situation was under control. Hamilton returned, being an ally of Dracula, and while Apocalypse and his followers began to destroy the converted vampires, Margaret followed his son to Dracula. However, she was still loyal to Apocalypse, as when Dracula insulted Apocalypse, she objected only to being killed by her own son. Hamilton Slade, descendant. As mentioned earlier, Hamilton Slade was the son of Margaret Slade. He was introduced in X-Men Apocalypse vs. Dracula, issue 1, published in February 2006. He was born to a prestigious family and had a strong dose of Apocalypse's blood, which made him really strong. His strength, however, made him believe that he was equal to Apocalypse, and he had no reverence for him. When Dracula set his eyes upon the clan Aqaba, Hamilton was the leader of the clan. To find the reason behind the deaths of his kind, he set off from the clan, and that was the last he was seen by his people. Hamilton was eventually killed by Dracula and converted into one of the vampires. When Margaret was taken to Dracula by her son, she refuted one of the insults on Apocalypse made by Dracula. This enraged Hamilton, as he was tired of listening to her mother praising Apocalypse. Hence, instead of converting his mother into one of the undead, he killed her. Hamilton was eventually killed when his brother Frederick teleported his head away from the rest of his body. Frederick Slade, descendant. Frederick Slade was the son of Margaret Slade and the younger brother of Hamilton Slade. Since Hamilton was stronger, Margaret liked him more and gave little thought about Frederick, who was comparatively smaller and weaker than his brother. He was a quiet child and ignored by most of his clan, except for Ozymandias, who believed Frederick possessed unique abilities which the Aqaba clan never had. He was courageous, fair, and lacked the greed which the other clan members were filled to the brim. His mutant powers were that of molecular rearrangement and teleportation, which Ozymandias wanted him to keep a secret until needed. However, this was soon discovered by his brother Hamilton, who used his power to crush Frederick's spine in his sleep, ensuring that he would never be a threat to him. As mentioned earlier, Dracula began converting the members of the Aqaba clan into vampires. At some point, when the entire clan was converted into vampires and Apocalypse had no hope, Ozymandias placed Frederick in a wheelchair, who simply teleported everyone away using a fraction of his powers. He helped track down Dracula and teleported everyone into his castle while Ozymandias protected him. In the battle, Frederick grabbed his brother Hamilton by his neck and teleported his hand away, thereby killing him. Jack Starsmore, descendant. Jack Starsmore was born into an inferior class of the clan Aqaba via the Starsmore bloodline. He worked as a loyal servant to the high houses of the clan and was often mistreated by everyone owing to his status. Although Hamilton treated him miserably, his loyalty to the council was unhinged, and he even went out of his way to ensure the safety and comfort of the council. Jack eventually became a police officer and worked his way up to an inspector. He kept an eye on anything related to the clan, but most of his duty required cleaning up the mess created by Hamilton, which would often include killing humans without any reason. Despite all his efforts, his clan never appreciated him, which eventually dragged him into depression. He became addicted to opium, in which he found his only solace. When the clan members began dying mysteriously, Jack was tasked to remove the clan's tattoos from their bodies before the authorities got track of it. He carried out the task smoothly until his opium craving kicked in and got him delayed. The authorities identified the tattoo, and they next went to inquire Hamilton about the clan members dying. Hamilton arrogantly told every single detail before murdering them viciously. Later, Hamilton went missing, and it was Jack who informed the council about it. Jack's depression shot high for him to go into a long opium binge in London's Chinatown district, where he met the vampire hunter Abraham Van Helsing, who stated he had answers for the murder. Jack invited Van Helsing to the council meeting where Apocalypse met him. They went to inspect the dead bodies at the morgue, but suddenly the dead sprang back to life as vampires and began attacking them. Even with Apocalypse's strength and Van Helsing's holy water, they were unable to stop them. They immediately arrived to warn the clan, but all were dead except for Frederick. They confronted the entire vampire clan along with undead Hamilton until Frederick managed to teleport them away. Jack helped them defeat the vampiric Aqaba clan, at the end of which he achieved something which he dreamt of, and that was freedom. Despite the clan ending, Jack passed on the teachings of the clan to his children and insisted they wear the clan's tattoo. Khabar Brashear, descendant. Appearing in X-Men Apocalypse vs. Dracula issue 2, published in March 2006, Khabar Brashear was one of the higher classes of the Aqaba clan. After Hamilton Slade went missing, he was declared the fittest. When Apocalypse was summoned, Khabar tried to explain the situation of the missing members of the clan and their mysterious death, but Margaret stopped him, stating that her son Hamilton had everything under control. When Khabar mocked her by stating how her son was missing as well, Margaret attacked him, and the squabble enraged Apocalypse. The meeting was interrupted by Jack Starsmore, who brought Van Helsing to the meeting. When Van Helsing explained the gravity of the situation, Khabar dismissed his claim, but later he was found dead and killed by Dracula's vampires. Clarice Ferguson, descendant. After the decimation of Clan Aqaba, Ozymandias thought of recreating the clan. He hired a prostitute named Miss Ferguson to have a relationship with Frederick Slade. Thus, she gave birth to new offspring, carrying on the bloodline of Apocalypse. Clarice Ferguson was the great-great-granddaughter of Frederick Slade. When Clarice was a young and inexperienced mutant, she was targeted by the Phalanx to be their next generation of mutants. Jono Starling, descendant. Making his first appearance in Generation X issue 1, published in September 1994, Jono Starling was the great-grandson of Jack Starsmore, which makes him one of the descendants of Apocalypse. Carrying the blood of Apocalypse in him, he was a strong mutant. And as stated by government agent Pete Wisdom, Jono had the potential of becoming an Omega-level mutant. Jono was a native of London and a mutant capable of producing psionic energy blasts from his chest. The first time his mutant powers manifested, it severely damaged his chest cavity and his face, for which he could only speak via telepathy. He soon received an offer letter to join the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters, and he accepted it. Evan Sabanur, clone. Created by Rick Remender and artist Esad Ribbits, Evan Sabanur was a clone of N. Sabanur and was introduced in Uncanny X-Force issue 7, published in April 2011. Unlike N. Sabanur, Evan was a good person and eventually a hero. It all happened after Phantom X killed a young Apocalypse and gathered some samples from the corpse. He then used the world, which was a scientific lab shrunk to the size of a palm, and raised the child in it, guarded by Ultimaton. Meanwhile, with the death of Apocalypse, his horseman of death, Archangel, sought to take his place. With no other option to defeat him, Phantom X released the clone who fought him, while Psylocke attacked him with a life seed. Evan lived the life of a hero and died, saving the world from Omega Red. Conclusion. So, we have finally come to the end of our video, and we hope you found the content interesting. Although these are the important characters and family members of Apocalypse, there are several other members of his clan carrying his bloodline. Feel free to add any important character carrying the blood of Apocalypse that we have missed. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe. Thanks, everyone.